Welcome to the Pride Perspectives radio show, here every other Sunday from 5 to 6. Find all the recordings and updates on the Santa Cruz County Pride website, santacruzpride.org. This is Rob Darrow. My pronouns are he, him, and his. I'm a lifelong Santa Cruzan and chair of Santa Cruz Pride. I wonder how you listen to this show, whether it's the live streaming or through the K-Squid app, or perhaps the recording afterwards. You know, you can listen live on 90.7, 89.5, or 89.7, serving Santa Cruz and Monterey counties. The purpose of our show is to increase everyone's knowledge about the important contributions of Santa Cruz County LGBTQ plus people to local, state, and national culture and history as part of Santa Cruz Pride's 50th anniversary here in 2025. Our show is guided by a couple of beliefs. We believe that Santa Cruz County is thriving partly because of the contributions of LGBTQ plus people, and LGBTQ plus people in Santa Cruz County are thriving because of the broader Santa Cruz County population. We believe in the words of Jewish poet Emerald Lazarus that says, "None of us are free until all of us are free." The purpose of our show, as I mentioned, is to highlight our important contributions. On this show, you will hear us refer to queer history and LGBTQ plus history. For us, those terms are interchangeable and refer to people who identify as lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and anywhere on the gender identity spectrum, or who they are attracted to. All are welcome to be part of this radio show. Our first radio show a couple weeks ago was set in the historical context. Our guests were David Payne and Dan Dickmeyer, two men who helped organize the very first Santa Cruz Pride in 1975. Our second show featured our podcast leadership team of Mars, Levi, and Maddie, who've interviewed over 20 queer elders about the incredible Santa Cruz queer history. Those podcasts will start being released this week on Tuesdays after we have a special kickoff reception. Tonight, our theme is the 1970s, and in particular, the women who contributed in those years of the 1970s. Cece's not here to join us tonight, but we have two other incredible women who have lived in Santa Cruz in the 1970s and were part of that first Pride back in 1975. I'm pleased that Cater Pollock and Patti Maxine are able to join us tonight. Cater and Patti, how you doing?
Great. Real good. Ooh, I'm loud, too.
It's great to have you here.
For a change.
And I think to start out, Cater, we'd love to have you share a little bit about yourself and what brought you to Santa Cruz.
Okay. Well, I moved to Santa Cruz in early 1973. I'd been living in Berkeley, studying at Cal, and I was getting increasingly dissatisfied with academic life in an era when the world was absolutely exploding with social change. The free speech movement, the civil rights movement, and the anti-Vietnam War movement had created a tremendous impact and showed us how powerful ordinary people could be if we banded together to create political change. The colorful hippie lifestyle was spreading and challenging social norms, and the women's rights movement was beginning to gain steam. I wanted to be part of it all, and as a young woman in my early 20s, I was struggling hard to break out of the traditional female role I had been trained for. I needed to figure out how to claim my power. I had met a young couple while I had been traveling overland in Asia. That's a whole other story. And it turned out they lived in Santa Cruz. So my then husband and I took a trip down to Santa Cruz to visit them. And Yale invited me to a panel discussion being held up at UCSC on the topic of lesbian culture. It was a discussion between young university women who had recently come out and somewhat older lesbians, maybe in their 30s, who had been part of the pre-Stonewall lesbian culture during a time when lesbians were highly ostracized and forced to live hidden lives, often on the fringes of society. At that point, since the Stonewall uprising, lesbians as well as gay men were beginning to create a strong and proud culture, demanding acceptance and respect, which meant it was a little easier to negotiate life as a lesbian. This presentation sparked a really deep interest in me and soon led me to drop out of school and move to Santa Cruz. It wasn't long before my husband and I split up and each of us came out. I soon began to immerse myself in the local lesbian community, making lots of friends, and participating in the struggle for social acceptance. I had found my people.
Oh, wow, that's interesting to me. I didn't know that about you. So we share that we were married to somebody of the opposite sex early in our lives and then discovered ourselves later on.
Sure.
Kind of fun. I tell people I lived the first 50 years of my life as a heterosexual. I'm living the second 50 as homosexual.
Oh, wow. That's good. That's good.
And then we also have Patti here tonight. And you two know each other, huh?
Yeah, but
Seems
let
like-
Patti introduce herself first.
Well, hey then. Hi, Patti Maxine here at this point in time. I have changed my name a few times during my life, so it's Patti Maxine. And seems like Cater remembers where I met her, so shall we go there? I did not remember.
Okay. Well, the lesbian community here in Santa Cruz at that time was really quite small and very tight-knit. It seemed to me like everybody knew everybody. There were lots of house parties and community events. And I had moved into a large communal house, an old dilapidated Victorian that's on Chestnut Street. And people often dropped by unannounced. And at some point, Patti came over to visit, possibly with Rebecca Adams.
Yes, we're thinking that is the case, yes.
Yeah. And I remember Patti in the back of the van, sitting there with her guitar and playing. And I was really taken by your really beautiful voice, Patti.
Oh, thank you, Cater.
So who knew how famous you'd become?
Well, and Patti, you should tell us how you ended up in Santa Cruz.
Well, I shall then, Rob.
Yeah, please do.
Yes. I ended up in Santa Cruz when I'm from Roanoke, Virginia, and did a lot of music back there growing up. And at one point in time, I was playing with a country band. And the bartender at this hotel where we were playing started talking about Lake Tahoe. Lake Tahoe, and I'm like, wow, that sounds like quite the place. So he invited me to come out. He had a place there that he rented from time to time when he came skiing, and he invited me out. And just one day, around late '69, early '70, somewhere along in there, it was in December '70 when I just flew out to California and flew into Reno, and it was snowing, and I caught the Greyhound bus over the hill to South Shore. Yeah, I was on an adventure, quite unlike the way I am, really. It was very unusual for me to do something that way, but it was just seemed right. So I ended up, they met me at the bus station, and took me to this place where I had this wonderful room that I could stay in right at the foot of Heavenly Valley, which I just never thought until just then I was at Heavenly Valley. What more could a person want? Just come on, really.
Really?
Yeah, and it was within walking distance of everything. It was right in the middle of everything because I really had nothing. I probably had my guitar and clothes, but that was it. So started looking for some work and played in little coffee houses and met these musicians, and they talked about coming to Santa Cruz. They were from San Diego, and they talked about coming to Santa Cruz all the time to hear this band called the Sons of Champlain, who were pretty well known back at that time. So I thought, well, if you drive all the way from San Diego just to see this group, they must be pretty good, and Santa Cruz must offer something very special. So I just decided I would come down and check out Santa Cruz. And when I did, it was during the spring, because they had the street fair where they closed off the mall. Back at the Cooper House, they just closed it off, no cars. As soon as I walked down there, it was like, oh, I get it.
It's where you belong,
I
huh?
got it. This is home. So I knew I was home. And then I started meeting some musicians, some women, and some other musicians, and I believe maybe that's when I met Joe Richards somewhere along in there. I'm not sure about that. Something will have to trigger that memory.
So you being a musician at that time, so you were, what, in your 20s?
Well, probably 30s. Probably, yeah. I think I left, well, I came here in 70. I'm going to say around 30, 32.
Yeah.
Perhaps, yeah.
Okay. And then as a musician, you would just meet up with other musicians. How would you find other musicians?
Just playing around town.
So
Just
you
kind
just
of
take
play
the
a different
guitar and
place.
start playing?
Yeah, they had kind of like open, there's always open mics, and there was a place downtown, I forget what it's called now. It was upstairs. Spalding's? Does that ring a bell? It's like a bar down there, and then there was something there right on the mall.
Downtown Santa Cruz.
Downtown
so
Santa
all that
Cruz.
music and the culture was pretty alive then.
Pretty alive, very
Yeah.
much so, yes. Yeah.
In the 70s.
In the 70s,
Yeah, I remember the Pacific Garden Mall too.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was
Good for
fun
you,
times,
Rob.
yeah.
Wow.
And that Cooper, did you ever play in front of the Cooper House?
I don't, maybe I did actually
Yeah.
at one point. I mentioned Joe Richards and another friend, Bruce Fry is his name. He's still around. Joe has passed.
Yeah.
But as a trio, we did a Smith, Richards, and Fry. That's my other little secret. Not Patti, Maxine. We did a trio. We played some different areas in Santa Cruz. Was a bar down on Front Street, and but I think Spalding's was this upstairs place I'm thinking of. So yeah, I met them, and we had that thing going.
And Cater, do you remember hearing Patti play in those days?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I'd go wherever anything was happening. It was, chance to meet people and hang out, and yeah.
Do you want to talk about some of those places?
Oh, that'd be a little hard at this point. They kind of blur together. There are just a lot of different little coffee houses. At a certain point, there was a women's coffee house named Two Sisters that's out by 41st. That was pretty fun because there were just lots and lots of women musicians, and women's music was starting to sparkle up a little bit.
Yeah, and there also was, Cater, there was a coffee house down on Front Street, down lower where the town clock is. Did you ever go there?
Oh, gosh.
I can't think of the name of it. It's hard to remember these names. But
I know. It's like as soon as something's gone, it's like jumps out of my mind.
I think it's a Mexican restaurant now, but there was I just can't think of it. Anyway, you might have come there.
So there were lots of coffee houses around Santa Cruz at the time.
Yeah.
Well,
I would say
popular
lesbian people would show up to or go to.
And it was a popular kind of thing at that time, like coming out of the 60s. Coffee houses were very popular,
Yeah, so
there was
didn't-
still a lot of that.
Didn't really have to go to a bar to hear music. You could actually go to a coffee
You
house.
had to go to a bar to drink, but then you had to go to a bar to dance. But you could go listen to music at coffee houses, and that was nice.
Yes.
That was real nice.
So I think what you're providing is that during the 70s, there were lots of coffee houses where lesbian people would hang out, lots of different musicians. And then women's music was just developing at that time. Did you happen to go to there was this women's music festival in Santa Cruz up in the mountains. Were you part of that?
Yeah, I was part of that, and a lot of my friends were, really active in organizing it. And it was a big deal at the time. It was a really big deal. We had, all women musicians there, and the only problem was that none of us knew much about, sound. Nobody had any equipment, so somebody had to make a deal with some guy to come in, and there was a big brouhaha about that.
Yeah,
What, drama?
A bit of drama, but because we really wanted an all-women space, and But yeah, women's music was such a big part of our culture then, of celebrating who we were, our emerging voice, our creativity. It was sort of a collective voice in a sense for all of us. It was a pretty powerful thing.
Do you remember how many people would show up at those events?
Well, there were many hundreds at the Women's Music Festival.
Wow.
Amazon Music Project, I think we called it AMP.
Yeah, I can't remember that I went to that. I know about it, but I don't know if I must have been here, but I don't know how I could have missed that. I mean, I know about Olivia that when that happened,
Right.
but
This was just a real homegrown kind of
Yeah.
thing. I mean, in a way, it would have been easy to miss it. It's like, you know everybody, and maybe you were out of town that weekend, and we had. I mean, our publicity was like,
Word of mouth, real
mimeograph
word of mouth,
flyers. No, we had flyers, but we passed them around. We put them up on
We can
telephone
type.
poles. There were bulletin boards. There were a lot of bulletin boards in town where you could post stuff. So,
Yes, that's the way it was done.
that's how it was done.
Yes.
Yeah, no internet.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
So we talked about the music piece, which was really important in these early years in Santa Cruz. That certainly helped to grow, I would say, the lesbian culture. The other area that I know you're familiar with, you probably knew about the Women's Health Collective. Do you remember that and how that started?
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. I was a really big part of that. Let's see. I started out right when I first arrived. I started working with two other women to offer a hotline of information, and we were offered to let people call in and ask us about any of women's health issues, especially STDs and birth control methods, pregnancy screening and abortion. And this was really revolutionary at the time because, again, there was no internet. There weren't even self-help books. There was just, starting from the Our Bodies Ourselves collective. There were some newsprint flyers on these issues. And so we posted mimeograph flyers around town with our individual home phone numbers, landlines, obviously. And gradually, over the year, the group grew, and by fall, there were maybe over a dozen of us, young women. We were pretty much all in our 20s, and we came up with this, brainstorm idea that we wanted to open our own clinic. Okay, we had no credibility in town, but this is what we were going to do. And I was really instrumental in driving this. Within less than a year, we opened our clinic, and we, had offered abortion services and GYN services. We trained ourselves. I mean, it was an incredible effort, and very, very exciting because we really wanted to be able to provide health care for women from our, own perspective, not, the doctors in town at that time were very, very patriarchal. There were only 7 OBGYNs in town, all religiously affiliated. So not able to offer abortion. The primary hospital was Roman Catholic. It was a big problem.
And I heard you just had a get-together last year that celebrating the 50 years, right? What was that like?
That was amazing. That was really amazing. Yeah, it was celebrating 50 years. That the clinic that we started has evolved and is still in existence. It's so the community health centers, and
how many people came together? What did you talk about at the 50 years?
Well, it was a big, a banquet kind of environment, but, I got up and just talked a little bit about how we had started the collective and what our goals were, kind of the importance of what we did and how it affected the women's movement, because it was really powerful in that.
Great. That's the amazing part to me as I learn this history. So, you share the early women's music piece and the early women's health piece, which were incredible places people would come together that kind of built part of the culture, the broader LGBTQ plus culture at the time, that eventually led to the first Pride in 1975, I think, in different ways. So, well,
yeah, I mean, I can, at some point I can talk a little bit
more about that
yeah.
in just a minute. We'll take a break here and come back afterwards and talk about that first Pride in 1975.
You're listening to K-Squid, soothing sounds from Santa Cruz County, available at 90.7 FM.
KSQD thanks the Santa Cruz Wharf for their support. Visitors to the Santa Cruz Wharf can help businesses recover from losses caused by winter storms. Wharf Wednesdays happen now through February 26th with live music starting at 6 p.m. Dining, drinks, and shopping are available, as well as 2 hours of parking, courtesy of the city. Thank you, Santa Cruz Wharf, for supporting community radio K-Squid.
Pardon? No, I'm just saying that we could talk about it.
And we're back.
Sort of more about.
And we're back.
We're back.
Welcome back to the Pride Perspectives radio show here on K-Squid 90.7, 89.7, and 90.7, serving Santa Cruz and Monterey counties. I'm Rob Darrow, chair of Santa Cruz Pride and the co-host of this show, and I'm so glad that I've got Kater Pollock and Patti Maxine here with our show. I have a little surprise for you. I learned, that first Pride, somebody videotaped a lot of that first Pride picnic in San Lorenzo Park. Now, that first Pride, it was a series of nights. And I don't know if either of you went to those other pieces, but there was a series of workshops, and then a Lou Harrison concert, and then a dance, and then it was the picnic in San Lorenzo Park. Did you attend all of those?
I attended many of those. Yeah, absolutely. There were more workshops than one person could attend, but it was pretty cool. There were about 4 days of workshops, and it was very, very exciting.
And Patti, how about you? Did you go to any of those other events, or did you just sing at the San Lorenzo Park?
If I did, I do not recall them. I did. I was at the park.
Well, and there was a special event that happened during that first Pride, and we're going to listen in to that first Pride. Let me see if you listeners out there can guess what this was, and then we'll talk more about it after we hear a little bit of this video clip that you'll hear the audio from. You hear all those people in the water? So I don't know when after 1975 they let people spread a rope across the San Lorenzo River. And of course, for whatever reason in 1975, the men were on one side and women were on the other. Now, Kater, I think you were there. What do you recall about that, and who really won that tug of war?
I was absolutely there. It was really, really a lot of fun. That just brings back so many memories, hearing those sounds. One of the things I'm thinking is just what a playful, exuberant experience it was. And we were doing a lot of political work, and there was a lot of intensity, but at the same time there was this political, this really fun break in the midst of it all. There was no parade that year, so the big picnic was our fun. And it was like a big old-style picnic. So as far as I can remember, there were like maybe a three-legged race and an egg toss, and then there was the tug of war. And we brought our own food and extra to share with people. No food trucks. So at that point, I think that in some ways it was kind of a symbolic thing to have that tug of war, because it was the very beginning of lesbians and gay men working together. Before that, our culture had been fairly separate in a lot of ways. Lesbians didn't have much interest in socializing with men, even gay men, and gay men kind of had similar feelings toward women, and very different styles of socializing, shall we say, at that point. So somehow the tug of war with the really long rope stretched across the San Lorenzo River, with gay men on one side and lesbians on the other, each of us pulling in opposite directions, became a really playful and symbolic way of expressing and I think relaxing some of those tensions. So I think that's part of why it really sticks in our imagination.
Do you recall how many people were in San Lorenzo Park that particular year? And what I've heard from other people, that it was a real coming out experience to be visible for one of the first times as a group of people. And was that what your experience was as well?
Oh, absolutely. It was really amazing to be in a group with that many people who were, identified as gay or lesbian, which is pretty much who was identifying out at that point. And
from the pictures, it looks like there were hundreds of people there.
Hundreds, yeah. I'm going to say 300 or 400, but I don't know exactly. Enough that we took a picture, a photograph, and we all got in the picture. So somehow it was, somewhere in that realm. It was a big group, really big group photo. But it was amazing to be with so many, just in such a safe space where we could really be who we were,
Yeah. And that's the beginning of that Santa Cruz LGBTQ plus culture that I've learned about over and over again from people who were there, and then what's carried forth these next 50 years and will carry forth 50 years into the future, regardless of, what people are doing in other places other than Santa Cruz. But we certainly cherish that around here, and we have all these people here to thank. I was at a gay men's gathering earlier that we have from time to time, and I asked the people there how many were at that first Pride, and there were like 5 of those guys that were there. And I said to them, I'm saying to both of you, that we thank you for being there, for standing up there, so that we can continue to celebrate this year, our 50th for sure. Patti, what do you remember from that first Pride? I mean, you were there. Do you remember how you ended up going there?
Probably just the music. I mean, I would have gone, no doubt, but
Yeah.
the music definitely got me there with Joe. So, and to see the video, I mean, seeing of the black and white video is just so wonderful that someone had the foresight to record it, and that it's been transferred digitally, and you've even improved that.
Yeah.
It's wonderful. Yeah.
What else do you remember about that day?
That's about it. I mean, I'm sure I just hung out all day, I would think.
Now, did Santa Rosa Park has that duck pond, and then there was a stage in the center. Did you play on that stage in the center?
No, we were just down. We were
just down on the bluffs.
Yeah,
down
we were
below.
down.
Benchlands.
The benchlands. Yeah,
the benchlands. Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah.
A lot of that is where all that picnic stuff happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there were dogs and kids. Children. Gay people actually have children. I don't know if you know that, but can you imagine? Yeah. But it was just like a family. It was like this, a wonderful family event, which it was. But just, kids having a great time, dogs running around. It was just lovely.
It's interesting you talk about kids, because on the clip we played earlier, and again, if we will put this on our website so others can see it, but there are glimpses of the tug of war, but then there's moms taking care of their kids and all the kids that are around there, and the dogs, like you said, we're all there. It was just one big community get together.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were so excited to all be together like that. It was just an amazing thing.
So how long did it go on? Do you recall about what time it started and how long it went on throughout the day, and how did it end?
Oh gosh. I can't really remember specifically, but I imagine we showed up somewhere late morning and spent the entire afternoon and went home with, everybody was cold and wet by the end of the afternoon, so off we went.
a June day in Santa Cruz, right? So sometimes, was it a warm day? Do you remember that?
I think it was. I remember people being somewhat scantily clad, so I think it was fairly warm.
Yes, the video does show people in their shorts and
such.
And such.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's those people who, let's say, those who won the tug of war and those who did not win the tug of war.
Yeah.
They got wet.
That's true. They got pulled into that water.
They surely did.
I don't know if people got to swim in the San Lorenzo River after that or not. They've closed it to allowing people to be in that.
Probably
in
a
that
good
river.
idea.
Probably think so.
that happened.
Yeah. It probably wasn't really that smart to be in the water in the first place. It was probably a little mucky, but we weren't thinking about that at that time.
No.
Just see if I wonder who came up with that tug of war. I'm going to have to keep asking that question. Maybe we'll find out whose idea it was to do that.
Yeah, somebody planned it, though, because there was a really big rope. It wouldn't have been there by accident, I think the Lagmu people came up with it for sure.
Yeah, those Lagmu people.
Those Lagmu people.
We'll have them
awesome.
on in a couple of weeks. We'll talk to them and that sort of thing for sure. So why don't we listen to some of that music from that event? Patti, do you want to set us up with this music, Patti? What's going on in this song that we're going to hear?
Are we doing the Dolly Parton song? Yeah. Well, it's me, very well commonly known as Pat Smith. Oh, yes. And my dear friend Joe Richards that I did music for so many years. And we are singing. He actually called us, which unfortunately got edited out of the clip when it was cleaned up, but he called us the Country Queers.
Ah, the Country Queers.
Country Queers, yes. Yeah. And he tipped his hat, and then we started singing this song by Dolly Parton.
Did the Country Queers stick around and sing other music in addition to this?
The Country Queers, yes, we did.
You did. You played other places.
Well, we did as a duo, and then I think, obviously, after that, Bruce Fry joined us, and we started being the Smith, Richardson, Fry trio.
And then that group, who played what instruments? And did everybody sing, or what was everybody's job?
Sang, yeah. Bruce Fry is an incredible blues singer and player. He did that. He's a photographer now. I don't think he does. He doesn't do music now, but Joe, a voice, a killer voice, and played a 12-string guitar. His father actually was Johnny Richards, who was a jazz musician. He wrote the melody to Young at Heart, his father. Do you know that one?
I don't.
Fairy tales can come true. It can happen to you if you're young at heart. So that was Joe's father. So the guy had it in his blood, and he was just an incredible, large person and singer, and yeah. So
what instrument would you play?
I play guitar. Yeah, before I started really playing lap steel, because I didn't have it with me yet, actually. I left it back home in Virginia.
The lap steel.
Yeah.
It came out later.
Okay. Me first.
We'll have to hear more about that in a minute. But let's listen to that clip of Patti and Joe Richards singing at that very first Pride.
Sitting on the front porch on a summer afternoon, get a straight back chair on two legs, so leaning against the wall, watching kids a playing with June bugs on a string, catch the morning fireflies when the shadows fall. In my Tennessee mountain home, life's as peaceful as a baby's sigh. In my Tennessee mountain home, crickets singing in the fields nearby. And they set the fire to lonely. Fragrance this summer wind so sweet. And on a distant hilltop, steady trees, sunburned on the wind smokes the sweet melody. In my Tennessee mountain home, life's as peaceful as a baby's sigh. In my Tennessee mountain home, crickets singing in the fields nearby.
Say what?
You remember singing that?
Heck yeah.
You still sing it today?
No. I could.
Yeah.
I could pass it along to Jazz the dog,
Yep,
and
there
we
you
could
go.
do it. We could definitely do it.
We should have we should do that for the 50th anniversary at some point.
Well, sure.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that.
All right. That
Okay.
sounds good.
All right.
You brought your guitar in here tonight.
Yes, I did, just in case. You never know.
Well, did you want to play something?
Oh,
Or just talk about music?
Is that my cue?
Well, that is one cue, yeah.
I could if you're ready. If you're ready for that, I wasn't sure. Okay, all right.
Why don't we do that?
All right.
And then we'll see what other memories pop into our heads around here.
Okay.
Any other memories you have? Did you see Patti singing at Pride? Do you remember that in '75?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
People were just sitting around watching, huh?
Absolutely. No, she was a big star to us.
A big star.
No, we made an effort to make sure she came.
Well, so talk about that a little bit. How was Patti a big star in those days?
Well, she was part of our community, and she was good, and we liked to listen to her, and we wanted musicians.
Oh, and you listen to her at coffee houses and stuff, right?
Yeah, at coffee houses.
Of course, you'd want her to be there.
Yeah, she was good.
Just like we want her there this year for our party.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Did you know your your big store, Patti?
No.
No?
I have a hard time with that. It took me a long time to just even let it in that people really liked what I do. It's hard, but I've grown to be able to do it. I take it in.
Yeah.
I'm taking it in.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I'm trying to give it back.
I mean, that's, when I moved back to Santa Cruz, about 12 years ago, got involved with the LGBTQ community, people would say, "Oh yeah, Patti Maxine, you got to listen to her." And then you were at lots of events, just like you were at our kickoff last Friday.
Yeah, that was fun.
That was fun.
Wasn't that a good day? I love that.
Yeah, we had like over 200 people there coming in.
Yeah.
You and Jazz the dog did a great job of setting the ambiance. Well, just like you did at that first Pride back in 1975.
Yeah. Now we have.
How many years you been doing this? You've been over 50 years.
At least.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've been playing actually. Well, I've been singing since I was in church. A little girl in church.
Uh-huh.
And but I've been playing, I guess, since I started taking steel guitar lessons when I was 14. Wow. So I've been playing out ever since then. Yeah.
Well, what are you going to play for us now?
I'm gonna play a song for you called "Peace on Your Journey," written by, I've been telling everyone, Judy Mahan. I hope I'm correct. She lives up in Mendocino, but I love this song. So here it goes for everyone here. This is all for you, everyone, and me too. Peace on your journey, light on your path. Pleasure in the moments when your life is coming fast. Lost in emotion I might have forgotten. Filling all the spaces between starting and stopping. And things I didn't say, the way it is today. Soon as you're thinking of something to say, everything changes and the room fades away. I've just discovered it's all right to be tender. Said something we'd forgotten, it's easy to remember. More than I could say would just be words to get through. Making the moments sing, that's all that I can tell you. And things I didn't say, the way it is today. Soon as you're thinking of something to say, everything changes and the room fades away. Coming no close, getting near to being free. And may all your traveling be easy, and things I didn't say. The way it is today. Soon as you're thinking of something to say, everything changes, everything changes, everything changes, and the room fades away.
Wow, what a great song. That's
Yeah.
as important today as it was probably any time you sing it.
Yes.
Is there a reason you chose that song?
Yes.
Do you want to share why?
I'm just trying to think. Today I was kind of going through this, what I was going to do, and there's another song I was going to sing, which if we have time I may do it, but then I just thought, I've done this song for so many years, and just, it's so universal.
Yeah.
I thought this will be the perfect song for now, so.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Cater, any thoughts on that song? Anything bring any memories back for you?
No, but I love it.
That's a good one, huh?
It's a good
Yeah.
one. It's really touches me.
Yeah.
So, as I mean, we've talked about music earlier on here, but the other thing that was going on in the 70s, UCSC started their feminist studies department, and kind of the whole feminist movement, women's liberation, was all percolating in the 60s and the 70s.
Yes.
I'm curious if either of you knew about it, and if so, did you participate in it in some way, and if so, what did you do?
I actually did. Have you been reading about me?
No.
I actually did. I took, I wasn't going to university, but I took a class by Nancy Shaw.
Oh. Is that also Nancy Stoller?
No, I don't know. Nancy
was her-
Stoller?
that
Oh,
was her name.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Didn't know that.
Same Nancy, same Nancy.
Yeah,
You gonna
Nancy
tell about
Shaw.
Nancy's story in a minute?
I believe it was
Okay.
called Women in the
Okay.
Color Line. I believe that was the name of the class
Wow.
that she taught. And you just wrote at the end of the semester or whatever it was. You wrote about your family, your upbringing, whatever. And I wrote about my grandmother because she was my total influence on my life. And so I wrote about her, and I got a pretty good note from Nancy. I was pretty proud of it because I was not a university student. It was just a, extra class that they offered, and yeah.
Was that a normal thing in those days that people in the community would be taking a class with? Were there other students in that class, or was it more a community class that there were other, quote, adults other than students in it?
Rob, that's a good question. I'm not really sure about
Yeah.
that. I would think it was college students and
As-
extra.
And extra people.
Yeah.
I mean, I've
Many
heard that from
people.
other people. Did you take any
Yeah.
classes up there?
Well, yeah, I was on and off a student and ultimately graduated from there.
Yay,
So yeah, it took me a while to get through because I was so involved in the Women's Health Collective. So that was my involvement with the feminist movement, and as it turned out, the women's health movement was crucial to feminism and to the gay rights movement, I think, because what we did was we put information about our bodies in the hands of ordinary women in an era when that was, all that information was controlled by doctors. And I think it's very relevant to what's going on today, actually, because, what we did then is that we insisted on the right to make our own decisions about our bodies, in terms of our healthcare choices, in terms of reproductive rights. That includes abortion rights and the right to have a baby when you want to. There was forced sterilization going on in that era as well, so we were working against that. And it also very much involved the choice of sexual partner and expression of sexual identity. So these things were, essential to the empowerment of women, because you can't really be free to create the life you want if you don't get to make decisions about your own body and your own sexuality, if you don't have control of your body. So this is the foundation for everything that's come in the last 50 years. And so I think by extension, these concepts that we were working on specifically about women and our right to control our own body also be spread to the importance of rights for all gay and trans people. The right to define yourself for yourself, and the right to express your sexuality and how you present your gender.
So I'm curious, in the Women's Health Collective, were there like support groups or women getting together? And if so, what were those groups like, and how many people would show up, and what would you all talk about?
Well, there weren't. One of the things that, what we offered was we had self-help groups where women would, and these were groups that would run for the community, for the public, and women could sign up and join a group, and I don't know, maybe 8 or 10 women in a group. And we actually did vaginal self-examination, which was the first any women had most of us had seen of our own anatomy, because there weren't pictures available much at that time.
Yeah.
And we then talked about issues of sexuality and issues of relationships. Women that were with men were, talking about the sort of power discrepancy and how to manage that and how to try to equalize relationships. So they became very, very powerful, those groups.
It sounds like it was revolutionary in some ways to set that framework for that and how it spread to other places. Did you all go to like national conferences and share the work you were doing in Santa Cruz, or did other people even know about it? But it seems like it was pretty revolutionary at the time for a city and a group of women to do something like this.
Absolutely, it was revolutionary. There were. I don't know of any national conferences, but what we did is there were in various cities around the country, a handful. There were feminist health centers, and we would communicate with them, or we would send a couple people, like it was a big deal to try to get the, airfare or the gas money to get there. But we would send a couple people, and, we'd communicate and share ideas, and they'd send people back and forth. So there was kind of a flow. And then, if you could go somewhere on the East Coast, that was, really exciting.
So there was cross-pollination of the work that you all did here in Santa Cruz with other health centers across the nation.
Absolutely.
And in our LGBTQ plus history, women or men or trans or any group, it seems like so much of that started in Santa Cruz in some way, shape, or form. So it's great to hear that validated from the women's perspective. Patti, did you interact with the Women's Health Collective at all?
Yes, as a matter of fact. My partner of 42 years, I met, who worked for the, she was employed, I guess.
Yeah, she got paid at some point.
She got paid at some point,
Did you work
right?
with her then?
Yeah, she was
Work
early
with her?
on.
Absolutely, because I was one of the clinic coordinators for a long time, and then when I left because I was going to have a baby, and I kind of tapped Marilyn to step in and take my place, and so that's how she got the job.
Did you introduce Marilyn and Patti?
No, I did not.
Well, that happened because also Marilyn she came down from Eugene with a bunch of friends who were in the arts. They were dancers and musicians and such, and they all eventually moved down here. And so Marilyn was dancing in a group called Mama Lucian.
That was an awesome group.
Awesome.
Absolutely
Exactly. When I saw Marilyn,
Mama Lucian. Huh?
Mama Lucian.
That was a revolutionary group because it was like 5 women doing dance in from a woman's
kind of political theater
experience,
type dance.
but out of a women's experience, which was so new at that time. It was extraordinary.
And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it's kind of a little usage of a Yiddish word, Mama Lucian, which is mother tongue.
And where would they perform that?
Oh, London. I don't know. Was it London Nelson or we had this discussion?
Would they be at the coffee houses? Would they?
No, they did.
It was a special performance.
Yeah,
well, they needed a stage.
A stage, and they had usually recorded sound. But sometimes I did some music, and our dear friend Pipa Pignon, who's moved since, and one of the dancers. Partners, David Winters, who was a really well-known musician in town. Yeah, sometimes there was live music, but mostly they choreographed 2 different pieces of music.
I think they performed up at UC sometimes.
Yes,
because there were stages that community could rent space up there.
Yeah, they went back and did the Wow Hall in Eugene, or maybe I don't know, different places. But
a lot of places. They played a lot.
Yeah, so that's how I was connected with the Women's Health Center.
So the women's group at the time shared health ideas, they shared music, they shared dance. There were lots of things that the women's movement shared with the broader community, it sounds like.
Yes, absolutely.
And then how did you and Marilyn meet?
Well, I saw her dancing.
Oh.
That was that.
That was that. She did this incredible piece that she wrote. She called it the chair piece, and it was a whole thing with just Marilyn and a chair.
I remember that.
Remember that piece?
Oh, wow, yeah.
Yeah, and there's a lot of those wonderful moments of all of us on videotape, or probably mostly video, but some some CDs and DVDs, whatever. Yeah.
It was such a fertile
Yeah.
time. There was just
Yeah,
so much,
very much.
erupting out of our culture.
Yeah.
So you have all those on video somewhere? Or somebody does?
There is some.
Oh, it'd be great
Yeah.
to find those, because we should celebrate those as part of the 50th anniversary and integrate them into to share those stories. You know
Right.
what? As we've thought about, what's important to share as part of our 50th anniversary, what we know is most people know what's going on in the last 10 years, but what
Yeah.
they don't know is how it all started back in the 70s.
Yeah.
And that we really want to bring those pieces forward to share with the broader community. So if you find any, or when you go home and talk to Marilyn, see if she knows where they are. It'd be good to know.
All right. Will do.
And then, so then, Marilyn, what was Marilyn's job and what was your job? Could you talk a little bit more about that, and then kind of the ongoing services that were provided?
Sure. Yeah, I was a clinic coordinator, so I was like running a clinic. I was, a baby, but I was running a clinic, figuring out everything. I figured out basically how to put the place to, with other people. We figured out how to create the flow of a clinic and how to build Medi-Cal and how to sort of have a sliding scale. And we did lab work. We did our own lab work, looked at slides and drew blood and all that. It's, full service operations.
So just like any medical clinic today, it sounds like you provided all those services.
Oh, absolutely. The thing that made us different, though, is that we incorporated women so much into their own care and, educated them so that they could see what was going on and, really make a decision about their own care. But yeah, no, we did it all, and we talked to doctors and trained ourselves, got training, read books, figured it out. And when things were complicated, we would refer out. We couldn't handle everything, but so much of what we were doing was relatively routine stuff.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier about that book, Our Bodies, Ourselves, and I forget in what context I know about that book, but that was a pretty important book, as I recall, and it sounds like the philosophy and theory and practices in that book you took on and helped to put them into practice in some way.
Well, that book was it was by the Boston Women's Health Book Collective, and it was the first book that really offered comprehensive information about women's gynecology and physiology, and also associated social issues from a women's perspective. But we went on to create various pamphlets and handouts that we researched ourselves on various topics, and in fact, in 1979, I was one of 4 women who wrote Lesbian Health Matters, which was the very first health book for lesbians, by and for lesbians, even about lesbian health at all. So that was fun.
You still have a copy of that book somewhere?
Oh yeah, and in fact, you can get it all over the place. I've looked it up, and you can get it at various booksellers throughout the world.
Wow.
It's gotten amazing, the distribution.
So we're going to find those videos of the dancers and the music there. We'll find copies of that book so we can have them on display at different events so people can go back and look at this incredible work that you women were involved with.
We were busy.
We were busy.
You were busy.
And I think it's so relevant. I think it's so relevant for today because we're coming into a really difficult time, and there's all this repression happening. In some ways we're thrown back to the level of discrimination and oppression that was going on in the 60s and early 70s. And I think we can learn a lot from the organizing that we did. There's a lot of lessons in that, and there was a lot of joy in what we did at the same time as it was really hard work, at the same time as it was absolutely terrifying at times. We didn't know who was going to show up at those early parades, and they weren't all friendly, So yeah, I think history is worth paying attention to.
So that's good news for all of us who might be a little concerned about our future history, is that we have 50 years of history here to build on and to use as knowledge about how to move forward as a community across Santa Cruz County. So that's the exciting part of hearing from both of you. For our kind of our closing segment, what we always do is ask each person, what did you learn from tonight? And then did Cece give you a quote for tonight to share?
Oh, yeah, she did.
Oh, good. Well, we'll
Yeah.
do the quote second. So
Okay.
first of all, let's just talk a little bit about, so from our conversation tonight, Patti, why don't you start? What did you learn from all the conversation we had here?
Well, geez, I don't know. It's over so fast. I can't believe how quickly it went by. So much. I think I learned a lot from hearing about Cater's work. I mean, I've known you for so long, but I don't always know what were you about back in the day. And so I don't know. I can't be real specific about what.
Yeah.
It'll all seep in.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like today, it's been more about remembering what happened and what we all did,
Yeah.
and sparking each other's memories.
Yeah.
We were there for it, and it's fun to share.
Yeah, I think that's the incredible part for me. I was not in the area at the time, but it's fascinating. But I've heard about all this, and you were live people who lived through it. So
It's really
hearing
weird.
those original stories of all the work you did really helps us to understand the foundation of the culture that we've built on since then. And so I'd say that's the greatest learning. The music, the Women's Health Collective, just amazing work that still continue today. That's the amazing part. And that you're all here to tell those stories also, which is really awesome.
Yes, and that fortunately we still, I don't know about you, Cater, but I have so many recorded things that I've come across lately that, cassettes. And some DVDs, some CDs that are like of groups of women that played together. Some that are still here and some that are not. Sister Star, for one.
Wow.
Just all these wonderful women musicians who play
So
together.
many. I'm glad you have those.
I
because
do
it's,
have those.
You forget, and
Yeah.
it would be fun to hear all that.
Yeah, so we can certainly pull some of those things together and have them ready
Yeah,
for you.
different events.
Yeah,
You
absolutely.
want to share your final quote?
Oh, sure. Let's see. There's somewhere. Okay. Thank you to Cece for providing these quotes. First of all, these are from a woman named Glennon Doyle. She's an American author and queer activist who actually was not even born until 1976, but nevertheless has wisdom to share with us now. Be yourself. We know we must decide whether to stay small, quiet, and uncomplicated, or allow ourselves to grow as big, loud, and complex as we were made to be.
Yay.
Wow, it's always great to hear those quotes. The other thing we always end up with is our upcoming events. Patti, are there any upcoming musical events where people could see you play if they wanted to?
Well, they could go on my website. That would be because that's
Is it PattiMaxine.com?
Yes.
Okay.
And I'm in a group called Jazz the Dog, so we also we play around here and there, and we're doing a February 14th show at the Ugly Mug. So come on. I think
Valentine's Day,
it's
huh?
sold out though, but you never know.
Sold out shows.
Yeah.
Are there many weeks that go by that you don't play somewhere?
Not too many.
Okay. Is there something else you're working on here? Okay. So other upcoming, you've heard about Patti's upcoming events. It's hard to get in, obviously. So you who are listening tonight are lucky that she's here to share that with all of us here.
Yes,
and
you
it's
are.
free for all your listeners out there. As far as other events coming up, know that the Wednesday, March 5th is Pride Night at the Warriors. You can get your tickets today by going to our website, santacruzpride.org. Thursday, March 6th will be our first Pride Thursday. So every Thursday starting in March, April, and May, we have different events at different places around Santa Cruz County. And the first one will be at the Watsonville Film Festival. We're going to meet up at the Public House for a little food ahead of time starting at 5:30. Again, you can see all of these different items on our website as well. The other exciting thing is this week we're going to release our first Santa Cruz Queer History podcast, so you'll get to listen to that. We'll talk about that in our next show. Our next show is on February 23rd, and you've heard from the women of the 70s. We're going to talk to the men of the 70s. One of our guests that night will be Patrick Meyer. As I've mentioned before, our shows are archived on our website at santacruzpride.org. I want to thank both Cater and Patti for joining us tonight. And any final thoughts from either of you?
Oh, just love to everybody out there. Hang on, hang tight. We're going to make it through.
Absolutely. Hang tight. Take good care of yourselves. Build community right now.
Absolutely.
We don't know what our
Yes.
course of action is just yet, but we're going to find out. You know, the resistance is building, so there's going to be a path forward. And
Yeah.
meanwhile, hug your friends and look for the joy, because there's always joy.
Yeah. And thanks to Eliza. May we say that? I did anyway. Whee!